Welcome back, Mando.
Oh, greetings, Bucketheads. Mevar Tagar. Welcome to our 286th droid impersonating episode of Mandovision. I am your host, Narguy Tom. Thank you so much for checking out our small independent Star Wars podcast. We're so glad you're here. Reach out to us on the socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter and Instagram. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. We are now over on Blue Sky, checking that platform out, seeing if we like it. Find us there at just Mando Vision. No underscore. How about that? Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. All right, Bucketheads, we're back, and we're talking about the penultimate episode of Season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. This is basically the second part of a big three-parter that kind of closes out the season. Technically even like a four-parter, because what happens in the Gal Travis episode really sets a lot of what happens in motion. And we are, of course, picking up where we left off last time with Kanan captured. What is the Spectres going to do? The crew of the Ghost, what will they do? And you might be surprised by the initial answers that we get to that very, very question. But it's a rock-solid episode. Really enjoyable. It's sort of the middle chapter, but it really sets up a nice finale for this first season of Rebels. So we are recording a little bit into the future, so if Star Wars news happens, it will be on a separate bonus episode of the show that we talk about it. This is just going to be hyper-focused on this episode of Star Wars Rebels. Because we want to make sure we get these episodes to you guys before the Thanksgiving holiday, before Skeleton Crew gets going. So yeah, I'm working a little bit into the future here. So I hope you'll bear with me if there is any breaking news, and just stay tuned to your feed in case there is, and I'll be making sure to talk about it separately on a bonus show. All right, so let's go ahead, get into the particulars of this episode. This is Star Wars Rebels Season 1, Episode 14. Rebel Resolve. The original air date for this episode is February 16th, 2015. Written by Charles Murray and Henry Gilroy, directed by Justin Ridge. Our primary voice cast for this week: Taylor Gray is Ezra Bridger, Vanessa Marshall is Harrison Dula, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Kanan Jarrus, Tiara Sakar as Sabine Wren, Steve Blum as Zeb Oriello, Dave Filoni as Chopper, David Oluwelo, is Agent Callus. Keith Zarbijka is Vizago. Stephen Stin is Grand Moff Tarkin. Liam O'Brien is Supply Master Yorga Lista. Jason Isaacs is the Inquisitor, and Ashley Eckstein is Fulcrum. Spoilers. Any hoot. Our plot for this episode: the team tries to get Kanan's location to free him. They do, but not initially. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Just in case anyone is wondering, this is basically Mandovision After Dark. I am once again recording under the cover of nightfall, so my voice may be of a different tenor than you are accustomed to. My boisterousness may be toned down just a smidge, but I hope you're okay with that. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's get into the episode. You know what that means. It's time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off.
You're going to have to relocate the covert.
This is the way.
This is the way.
So this episode starts off with another great action piece as Ezra, Zeb, Sabine, and Chopper attempt to find the location that Kanan's being held in, right? So they're trying to get access to the Imperial network. So in order to do so, they're going to hijack an Imperial walker. The early walkers, not the ones we know from Empire Strikes Back. You guys probably can tell the difference visually. But it's a fun sequence with the Spectres just engaging the Imperials, showing that great teamwork that we've begun to see from them as they kind of like formed into a nice military unit here. But what we find out is that the network's shut off right now. That antenna's down. Marv Tarkin brought it down, and because of that, Imperial communications are working a little bit differently. Now we cut across to touch base and see Kanan in custody, preparing for interrogation at the hands of Moff Tarkin, specifically the hands of the Inquisitor. But Tarkin's there to get the answers that he wants, to find out if Kanan is in fact a real Jedi of the ones from the Old Republic. We're talking like almost 20 years, 15, I guess, roughly, since the fall of the Empire, or excuse me, the fall of the Republic and the rise of the Empire. So, Tarkin has a bit of an interest in finding out if this person's claims to be a Jedi are legitimate or not, or if he's just a pretender. So, again, Tarkin wants to ascertain that. The Inquisitor is the one who's going to come forward to do that. And interestingly enough, we see the Inquisitor using the Force to try to get into Kanan's mind to pull the answers out. What we find out a little bit later in the episode is that Kanan doesn't really know anything about anything. So if he got captured, he can't spill the secrets. We find that out from Hera. Now, as Sabine and Zeb and Ezra, with the aid of Chopper, are attempting to extract that information from the Imperial network, Hera's having a conversation with Fulcrum. They're their mysterious source for information on Imperial movements across the galaxy. We all know who Fulcrum turns out to be. I hesitate to kind of keep the idea of the mystery going here, but like just for the sake of the episode, let's just pretend we don't know that it's Ahsoka. and Ahsoka is basically telling them, you guys got to lay low. You have attracted way, way too much attention. Anything that you try to do to find and rescue Kanan is clearly going to be an Imperial trap. The message that Ezra broadcast, that was Kanan's plan, has caused a lot of attention, not just on Lothal and some of the surrounding systems, but within the Empire as well. So capturing these rebels has now become a big priority. So having Fulcrum, a.k.a. Ahsoka, telling them to lay low goes against everything they want to do. And now it's up to Hera to sort of be the one to tell them that, no, we're not going after Kanan. We have to drop this, and we have to go and get under, keep a low profile, which isn't going to go over well when Hera passes this information on to the rest of the team, specifically to Ezra. Now, as we've talked about, as we've rewatched the show, is yes, this is a group of rebels that are coming together to fight the tyranny of the Empire, but they also have a very strong family dynamic. So now that one of their family members is missing, the group has less of a tendency to act like a military combat unit, right? So the idea of Hera giving them orders to not do something isn't going to resonate well, because it's a family comes first situation, right? Like, yes, they are a cell of freedom fighters going up against the Empire, but the family dynamic that exists within them puts that stuff first. And that's going to be something that they struggle to balance as we move through this series, because the personal connections that these characters have with one another, comes to the forefront as opposed to, and not necessarily in light of, but the military stuff becomes very secondary. Like, yes, they have their objectives. Yes, they have missions. Yes, they're trying to help destabilize the Empire. But it's those familial connections that become the most important part to these characters as we move forward. And we see that most especially with Ezra, who is swapping one family for another one very, very specifically. Whether Kanan and Hera and the rest of the team view themselves as that at this point is a little harder to see. They've had their partnership for a long time, but Ezra is this new element that maybe is going to bring them together in a different way. And that's going to be something that we get to explore more as we go on through the series. So Ezra being told by Hera not to go and locate Kanan is something that he's not just going to agree with. He's not just going to follow orders, because that's not who Ezra is. And it puts them in a bit of a precarious situation to go against Hera. So, Chopper, Zeb, Sabine, and Ezra basically sneak out of the Ghost. And they go off on their own to try and get a lead on how to find Kanan. And it takes them to Vizago. And Ezra makes the very bold choice to offer up the fact that Kanan and now Ezra are... Ezra saying he's a Jedi is a bit of a stretch, but Kanan more specifically, I think we can accept that one moving forward. But that's what he offers up to Vizago is that a Jedi would owe Vizago a favor. And Vizago is very clear that he wants it to be anything he asks. And Ezra tries to make it, within reason, and Vizago will not put up with that. But the information that Vizago gives is that because the Imperial Network is down, because of that antenna going down, and because of the broadcast that was sent out, the Empire is using courier droids to transport information back and forth to Tarkin's ship in orbit around the planet. And for that information to be disseminated through the ships. It's not through Tarkin's ship. It's through the light cruiser that we meet up with later. But that's beside the point. So a plan is hatched where Chopper will impersonate one of these courier droids. They'll take the actual courier droid with them so that they can access the information themselves. And then they'll rescue Chopper, who's going to go up there and sort of distract and do the things he needs to do to keep the Empire from figuring out what they're doing. Chopper's sort of a diversion, but he gets repainted, looks all Imperial, all professional Imperial, and it leads to another great action sequence. Meanwhile, back with Kanan and the Inquisitors, again, good stuff there. And did I already mention the interrogation part? Like we saw with Kylo Ren, what Kylo Ren will ultimately try to do to Poe Dameron in The Force Awakens. We got to see that in live action. Well, this was the Inquisitor doing it first on Star Wars Rebels. So something that I thought was very, very interesting to see, because I had sort of forgotten that specific move by the Inquisitor. So getting to see that, very, very cool. So we get a great action sequence to kind of close out the episode as the Ghost has to go rescue Chopper now from that Imperial diversion he's caused and the chaos he's causing on that light cruiser that we're getting to see. Meanwhile, the group has extracted the information from that courier droid, who's actually being very, very helpful to the rebels. He's putting out fires on the ship. Zeb's kind of getting attached to him, and very, very funnily. Chopper's homicidal tendencies sort of rear their head as Zeb says that we should keep this other droid as well. And Chopper then pushes that astromech right out of the Ghost to the surface of Lothal. Somehow that droid survives. Think about that. That looked like a long drop from where I was at, but maybe that droid's also equipped with some thrusters the way that Chopper and R2-D2 are. Who knows for sure? But he does survive. We see him on the planet of the surface of Lothal with the Lothcats on him. I want to go back because it is a really great action sequence. I do think it's really fun to check it out. Very much enjoy the emphasis on the actions in most of these recent episodes of Rebels. The cold opens have action in them, and then we get like some big stuff at the end for sure, and then there's even a little bit sprinkled in the middle. So very action-oriented series thus far, and I do dig that as we kind of are using the action to connect us more to these characters as we move forward with them. But the information is extracted, and Sabine's processing it, and they find out that, oh yeah, he's on Moff Tarkin's ship, the Sovereign, and it's about to depart. It's going somewhere. Where's it going? Some place called Mustafar. And no one has heard of that planet except for Hera, who tells them that is the place where Jedi go to die. And we all know who's on Mustafar, which means we know who's waiting for Kanan Jarrus to show up. And that sets the stage for our Season 1 finale. And I don't think it gets bigger or more exciting than that. I give it 8 buckets. We move through it pretty quickly, and it's a pretty fast-paced episode. We move boom, 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 boom. There's not a lot of fat to chew on. The Rebels Season 1 is actually much more lean and mean than I remember it being. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we wrap up the season. But I've been surprised how quick the pace is in these episodes. They get a lot accomplished in the 24-ish minutes of the show that they have. Probably closer to 20 minutes, honestly, after all the credits and everything. So they get a lot out of every single episode, which is great. But yeah, that's the episode. 8 buckets, and it sets up a big confrontation with the man himself, Darth freaking Vader. Doesn't get bigger, doesn't get better. I can't wait to talk to you guys about that one next to close out this Season 1 rewatch. All right, this is the Mandovision Podcast. I am your host, Nargai Tom. Thank you again for checking out this small, independent Star Wars podcast. Reach out to us on the socials at Mando_Vision, Twitter, Instagram, and now on Blue Sky, just Mando Vision. Email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. If possible or so inclined, a great way to support this show is sweet 5-star reviews. Thank you. All right, Bucketheads, we are rolling towards the holidays here in the States. But for any of our listeners abroad, it's just Thursday. But if you're over in Europe and you're near those Christmas markets, oh my God, go to those Christmas markets. They're amazing. And send me pictures from them. They're glorious. It's been years since I've been to one, but I miss them terribly every year when this season rolls around. I cannot speak for the life of me. That is one of the problems with Mandovision After Dark sometimes. Sorry. All right, Bucketheads, go out there, be great Star Wars fans, be kind, supportive, respectful, and get ready because Season 1's wrapping up for Rebels, and then we're on to Skeleton Crew. It's going to be a great time. But remember, this podcast, it only ends one way, my friends. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way.
I would like to see the baby.